Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast. I am Jon. Filling in today for Jason is Bridget. And Bridge, we are getting down to the nitty-gritty of the season. There's not much hockey left to be played.
We are in the home stretch, and boy, there is still a lot of uncertainty about where we're going to land in the playoffs, but we'll get to that.
Absolutely right. But before we get to that, we've got to talk about our official merchandise sponsor on the Mavpuckcast this season, Lawler's Custom Sportswear. You know, we're going into our final home series of the regular season. At this point, we don't know if we're going to host any conference playoff hockey at Baxter Arena. So this might be the last time you get to cheer on the Mavs in person at Baxter Arena this season. And this weekend on Saturday night is a whiteout night. So you might want to pick up new white merchandise from Lawler's Custom Sportswear, maybe a white home jersey, maybe one of those new home jerseys with the bull on it, Bridget.
I think any of those would be good options. So if you don't have white apparel, you should definitely check out the Lawler's store near 84th and L or lawlerscustom.com.
Absolutely right. So I got to tell you, back at the end of January, the Mavericks looked dead, but in the tradition of R&B artist Gloria Gaynor, the Mavs said, "I will survive." And since getting swept by DU at home, UNO is 7-1-2 in conference games. A big turnaround by these guys. I'll tell you what, this team so far has been up to this sort of Herculean effort of getting themselves back in it, Bridge. But going into that Friday game, we were hopeful that UNO would have success. Miami has struggled the past several seasons in the NCHC. Their head coach, Chris Bergeron's trying to turn things around. You know, I noticed this weekend, they've got a number of European players on the roster. A few years ago, Lake Superior State did something similar. They went overseas to recruit some guys, and it worked out really well in them turning around that program's fortune. So hopefully this will work for Bergeron, but it was scoreless throughout most of that first period on Friday night with about 90 seconds left in the first. Defenseman Kirby Proctor puts UNO up 1-0.
Yeah, Omaha had a good start. They were out shooting Miami at one point 13-1. So it was great to see Proctor get his sixth goal of the season with assists from Tanner Ludke and Jack Randall. But getting that all important first goal was critical for the Mavs.
Absolutely right. 1-0 UNO at the end of the first. Not a big lead, but we'll take it on the road. Again, we've talked about how we've struggled against Miami over the years. You were worried with series coming up against North Dakota that they might be overlooking these guys. But second period on Friday, 5:09 into that period, Jimmy Glynn puts UNO up 2-0. Love Jimmy Glynn, lunch pail, hard hat type player for UNO. Good position for UNO to be in, being up 2-0. But as radio commentator Terry Leahy says, the 2-0 lead is the most dangerous lead in college hockey.
Yeah, and in that second period, Omaha thought that they had gotten a third goal, but the officials looked at it and determined that it was no goal, but it was still great to be up 2-0 at that point.
About midway through that second period, Miami's John Waldron narrows the lead, gets power play goal for Miami. It's 2-1 at that point. The teams leave the second period with UNO leading 2-1. A good position for UNO to be in, but quite honestly, Bridge, a little bit too close for comfort. Boy, and then there were a lot of fireworks in that third period. 8:59 into the third period, Brock Bremer puts UNO up 3-1, assist to Erdahl and LeMay. Back to that 2-goal lead. I felt more comfortable at that point, Bridge.
Yeah, Miami had definitely narrowed the shots on goal at that point. But again, that most dangerous lead in hockey, you just knew that we weren't finished yet. And Simon lost his stick. Omaha couldn't clear the puck, and Miami made it 3-2 with 6:15 left in that third period.
I know they need to put some Velcro on Simon's stick because that thing seems to have gone flying multiple times during this season for him. In the latter stages of the third period of that game, Miami gets 2 goals to tie things up. Boy, it was 3-3 as the seconds ticked down in regulation. And I was worried because UNO really needed to get 3 points out of this to stay competitive in the conference race. And I was like, oh boy, here we go again. Another overtime game. But man, in that final minute of regulation, Zach Erdahl gets the game winner, assist to Miller and Sullivan. Your sister stopped by our house to drop something off, and I think she thought we were completely nuts when Erdahl got that goal, and we just started screaming that he got that right there at the end.
I kind of think she knows what to expect after this many years, but it was definitely a clutch goal for Zach Erdahl. Omaha, of course, got its 13th win of the season when scoring first. So like I said, that first goal was critically important, but the most important goal was the last one, Zach Erdahl securing that regulation win for the Mavericks.
As I mentioned numerous times on the podcast, UNO recruited him several years ago. He ended up going to Wisconsin. There was the regime change at Wisconsin with Mike Hastings coming in. Zach Erdahl, as a sophomore, decided to transfer in. It's been great to have him for his junior campaign here with UNO. Like I said, the Mavs win 4-3. We're in a good position going into that Saturday night game. We were hoping that we could secure the sweep out there in Oxford. First period Saturday, that first period for UNO was scoreless. Neither team scored during that period.
Yeah, we thought that Omaha had gotten the first lead of the game late in that first period with about 3 minutes left. Tanner Ludke was crashing the net and Jack Randall poked the puck in afterwards, but Tanner ended up getting called for a goaltender interference penalty instead. So yeah, no scoring in the first. Omaha, again, outshooting Miami 13-4 after one period, but Miami was not going to go down quietly.
Tanner's like, if I don't get the puck in there, I'm going to get in the net. But that second period Saturday night certainly was interesting. 2:12 into the period, Miami's Artur Taransky puts the RedHawks up 1-0. A little bit worried at that point. Certainly a game Miami team on their senior night, wanting to have positive success. When you're a team that struggled, you're going to give it everything you got. But 7:18 into the second, Griffin Ludke ties things up on the power play goal, assists to Miller and his brother Tanner. So the Mavs are tied up at that point. And then 14:05 in the second, Jack Randall puts UNO up 2-1, assists to Matt Miller and Griffin Ludke. 2-1 at the end of the second, and Bridge, that 2-1 lead held through the rest of the game.
Yeah, two huge power play goals for Omaha in that second period. The first one was actually a 5-on-3, and that really gave Omaha the opportunity to move the puck around quite a bit. And then Jack Randall getting a power play goal. We've heard a lot of fans, as you would say, chirping about lack of power play production, but the power play came through when the Mavs needed it to, and those two power play goals in the second came through right when they were needed.
Yeah, and as we've talked about before, gritty play by those veteran players like Matt Miller, Jack Randall, Nolan Sullivan, so huge to get from our leadership team down the stretch. The Mavs get the job done. They get the sweep out at Oxford, and they get 6 big conference points. So that was fantastic, a fantastic road swing for UNO. But Bridge, we've got to talk about our players of the week. Who did you like this week? Normally, when I do the podcast with Jason, it's a complete surprise. Normally, you and I discuss it ahead of time so we can each pick our player and get all the information right. But we didn't talk about it. It's, we're recording this podcast. I'm kind of running on fumes at this point in the season, so I have no idea who you're going to pick. But who did you like as your player of the week for this big sweep out at Miami?
Well, there were certainly a lot of players to like this weekend, and Kirby Proctor has surpassed his previous goal production. He has a new single season high in goals for him this season with 6 goals. He was a little bit quieter last year. He had a pretty good junior campaign, so he was definitely in the mix. Hope you're not picking him. We'll see. But really, I've got to go. This is an interesting one for me. I've got to go with sophomore defenseman Griffin Ludke. Interestingly enough, he was the player featured at last week's press conference. So it's kind of neat to get a little bit more insight into one of the Ludke brothers from that perspective. But he had a goal and assist on Saturday. He had his third multi-point game of the season on Saturday night. He had a multi-point game with Western Michigan early in the season, and the Saturday night St. Cloud game. He only played 14 games as a freshman, but he has appeared in every contest for the Mavericks this season. And we've definitely noticed him both on the scoreboard, usually in conjunction with his brother, but also solo. He has 4 goals and 15 assists this season. And he's not only my player of the week, but he gets a nod for all of his efforts this season. He's really come on strong for the Mavs.
Yeah, he definitely has come on strong for UNO. Like you said, very quiet freshman campaign for him. But as the old song goes, reunited and it feels so right. Tanner Ludke comes in to the Mavs this season, and that pairing has been great for UNO. Great to see both of the Ludke brothers having success. Got that power play goal on Saturday night, which was so important for UNO. I'll tell you, I'm going to have to go. Boy, this is a tough one. Like, I've been talking about the veterans. I love Zach Erdahl. I picked him multiple times this season, and certainly getting that game-winning goal on Friday night, so huge in the final minute of play. But I've got to go with one of the veterans. I've got to go with senior Matt Miller. Had 3 assists this weekend. He has 5 goals and 10 assists this season. You know, he's one of those guys, it's easy to underestimate him and it's easy to overlook him. But I was so excited when UNO got the commitment from him. He had originally been committed to Michigan State, ends up coming to UNO. Not only has he been a great performer on the ice, he's been a great veteran leader. And when UNO does that post-game fight song celebration in the lobby, you can just see his enthusiasm. He's so good with the fans. It's just been really, really nice to have Matt on the roster. So yeah, I got to give a shout out to Matt Miller here in this stretch run, because veteran play is so important when you're making a stretch run and heading into the postseason.
Yep. And like I said, want to give I guess we call it honorable mention to graduate defenseman Kirby Proctor, and then also graduate for Jack Randall. You know, you're talking about those veterans coming up clutch. That was Randall's 4th game-winning goal of the season. 7 of his 12 goals have come since the first of the year. So I think we're starting to see some of that senior leadership really shine as we get down the stretch here, and we definitely need it. But kudos all around for a great, I would say, just all-around effort from a lot of the guys. There were certainly other ones that we could have picked. Simon had another great weekend in goal. So yeah, just a lot to like from this Miami series. And once again, the Mavericks coming up huge in those 1-goal games. I believe they're 14-1 on the season in 1-goal games. So definitely the cardiac kids, they were giving me a little bit of a heart attack over this weekend, but they managed to pull it out.
Yeah, the Mavs certainly have liked to keep it exciting for all of us this season. But as we talk about the regular season winding down and the postseason getting ready here to gear up in a couple of weeks, we've got to talk about the NCHC standings. It's kind of a mess in the NCHC right now. I guess really in the middle of the NCHC. It's like that book you have by Scott Belsky that's sitting on our nightstand, The Messy Middle. That's how I feel about the conference right now. And it wouldn't be the NCHC without a lot of guessing going in to the final weekend of the season. And when you talk about 3 through 5, 3rd place is St. Cloud State with 40 points. 4th place is Colorado College with 38 points. And in 5th place is Omaha with 34 points. So it's nip tuck between those 3 teams in the conference race right now. St. Cloud State, Denver, and North Dakota have secured home ice in the playoffs. So right now, Omaha and Colorado College are fighting for that fourth and final home playoff position in the conference race to see who gets home games in the first round of the NCHC playoffs. Only 4 points separate us in the conference race. It's close, Bridge, and you've got Western lurking back there behind us. And they finished the season at home with Miami. So it's going to be tough for Colorado College, who finishes the season with Denver, and UNO, who finishes the season with North Dakota.
Yeah, speaking of North Dakota, I was really happy this last weekend to see that they had secured the Penrose Trophy with a sweep of Western on their home ice. I really hated that in previous seasons, seeing their fans and teams celebrate at Baxter, raising that trophy. So glad to get that off the docket. Like you said, they have secured home ice for that first round. They're going to face 8th place Miami. But like you said, that messy middle, there's just so much that can happen in this final week of conference play. Omaha can finish with home ice. They could finish on the road. They could finish as low as 6th. And we just don't know it. It doesn't just depend on what we do. A lot of that has to do with how those other teams finish too. But the things that we look at are what can we control? And you pointed out to me over this last weekend, Omaha hasn't swept North Dakota. So maybe this is an opportunity for a first of its kind weekend.
Yeah, we have not swept North Dakota in our history of playing North Dakota, both in the WCHA and the NCHC. But yeah, North Dakota wins the regular season conference championship, secures the Penrose Cup. So they will, of course, be playing Miami. But yeah,
well, I think the bottom line is they need at least 5 points and then some help.
Let's just put it to you this way. Omaha needs to finish ahead of Colorado College in the conference standings. Right now, we are 4 points behind Colorado College. Finishing ahead of them will get us that final home spot. Western Michigan is eliminated from a top 4 finish in the conference. We did not play an even 4 games against Colorado College this season, so it's not going to be head-to-head play and our head-to-head record against each other that determines which team finishes higher if there ends up being a tie after the final weekend of play. So then it goes to the second tiebreaker, which is conference wins. And as we know, UNO played a lot of overtime games this season. They had success in that 3-on-3 overtime period, but that 3-on-3 overtime win does not count in those tiebreakers as a regulation win does. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if UNO is able to leapfrog Colorado College in the standings. And I think there's a real shot, but in my opinion, I mean, we can talk about whether, UNO needs a win and a tie and, 5 points or 4 points or what they need in order to leapfrog Colorado College. In my opinion, a lot of good things can happen for UNO if they find a way to get a sweep against North Dakota this weekend, which is going to be a tall order. It's going to be interesting to see because certainly North Dakota is jockeying for postseason placement and seeding in the NCAA tournament. So St. Cloud could finish second. Denver could finish third. There's all kinds of scenarios. There's a scenario that has Colorado College finishing in second place after this upcoming weekend. So a lot's in flux. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and complicating that, of course, is the unique nature of that end of season series between Denver and Colorado College, because they actually do it as a home and home. So, where you might think one of the teams would have an advantage with home ice, both of them get home ice this weekend, with them traveling to each other's barns on Friday and then again on Saturday. So again, so much can happen here. We're just going to have to hang on for the ride and see how that goes. But you mentioned, postseason implications. Of course, UNO is still battling for one of those at-large spots in the pairwise. Like you said, North Dakota is looking for placement. You want to talk a little bit about how that might work, Jon?
Right now, UNO sits 17th. in the Pairwise rankings, as we've talked about before. Okay. And I can't reiterate this enough, because as many times as I say it to fans, the human element is essentially removed from how teams are determined for the NCAA tournament. Those 16 teams that make it into the NCAA tournament every year are determined by math. It's a mathematical formula that's built on comparisons. And so when we talk about the NCAA tournament every season, we're not talking about people in a room who determine things like they do in football and basketball. And I know that there are some fans out there, like the Arizona State. Yeah, the Arizona State fans this year who are upset about that. And quite honestly, when you look at college football and college basketball, when you look at sports talk shows, sports talk radio, etc., I mean, part of the fun is, the commentators trying to predict where teams are going to get placed, if they're going to get in, if they're not, did they put enough on their resume to impress the committee? I mean, that's what makes especially the NCAA basketball tournament every year so much fun, are people trying to predict that. Well, we don't have that in college hockey. Apparently they hired Mr. Spock to come up with a logical system that just uses math. Okay, UNO is 17th in the pairwise. They really need to be 13th or 14th in the pairwise in order to get one of those at-large spots. And so there's a lot of work UNO has to do. Certainly finding a way to sweep North Dakota this upcoming weekend would help in that regard, and certainly would likely move them up in the standings. But again, with playoffs coming up, and at some point here, certain teams are going to be eliminated in some of the other conference tournaments. You just don't know from a comparison point of view where exactly UNO is going to finish down the stretch.
Well, I can tell you, having done some of that geeky math and working with College Hockey News comparison tool, UNO really needs a sweep of North Dakota to start making that march up to those spots that you mentioned, 13 and 14. But obviously there's a lot of other, factors that go into that. So they definitely need to advance, in the postseason play, making it to St. Paul. Winning in St. Paul would be even better, because that gives us an automatic qualifier spot and knocks, some other hopeful bubble team out of it. Like we talked about, this weekend is a critical series for the Mavs, both for NCHC playoff implications as well as for postseason hopes.
Look, like we talked about at the top, UNO is 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. So they've proven that they can get it done, but they've got to keep winning. And so looking at this upcoming series against North Dakota and looking at realistic playoff opponents for the NCHC first round there here in 2 weeks. UNO is going to be playing some good competition that are likely going to be ranked ahead of them in the pairwise rankings if things shake out the way that I think they'll shake out in this final weekend of conference play. So they've got some opportunities, but they've got to keep winning. If we did a 3-hour podcast, I'm sure we could put a telestrator up on the screen and outline for all of you how UNO wins this comparison, that comparison, etc. Because as Bridget knows, I've calculated that with a pen and paper and a calculator in the past, which is kind of fun to do if you are so inclined to do it, but it can get tedious after a while. And looking past the conference playoffs and the NCAA tournament and everything that's coming up in the next month, we're going to look further ahead to October of 2024. UNO, as we've mentioned on the podcast before, and as we've talked about online, will be playing in the Icebreaker tournament out in Vegas. It's a trip that a lot of fans are excited about. I know a number of fans have reserved their tickets and their hotel for that. There was a representative from the Icebreaker tournament at Baxter Arena at an information table, answering questions, handing out flyers, and you got a chance to talk to him, Bridge.
Yep. We're going to show a little bit of that video here following my remarks. But yeah, Jon Killoran, the event manager for the College Hockey Icebreaker, was available to talk to fans. We've definitely, like you said, talked to a lot of fans who already are planning on going out there. And he talked a little bit about what we can expect when Omaha participates in the Icebreaker on Friday, October 11th and Saturday, October 12th. Hey, it's Bridget here from the Mavpuckcast, and we are already talking Vegas hockey.
Jon Killoran, and I'm the event manager of the College Hockey Icebreaker in Las Vegas, Friday and Saturday, October 11th and 12th this fall. And your Mavericks are going to be playing along with the University of Minnesota, University of Massachusetts, and the Air Force Academy. 4 games over 2 days. Mavs will play in 2 of those games.
That's outstanding. And I understand you have a ticket deal for folks. If they want to get their tickets ahead of time, they can go ahead and order them now.
That's right. Orleans Arena, and that's ORLEANS, like the city New Orleans. OrleansArena.com will get you. You got to do a little maneuvering to get to that event. But when you do, the all-in price is just under $126. And what I mean by all-in, all 4 games, same seat, in an arena like Baxter, about 8,000 seats, and no hidden service fees, no hidden taxes, $126 all in, same seat, all 4 games.
I can attest to that because we already have our tickets and it was quite the smooth experience for us. So what kind of things are planned for fans if they come out to Vegas then in October?
Well, first off, the Orleans is an all-purpose, all-encompassing resort. Has 7 different restaurants. There's an 18-screen movie theater complex, 52 lanes of bowling, a full casino, a showroom that's currently showing Jersey Boys, if there are any Frankie Valli fans out there. And then obviously the games, and you're also, if you want to stray away from where the Orleans is located, you're only about 1.5 miles from the famous Strip and everything that has to offer.
That's outstanding. So come join us, me and Jon and everybody else on the Mavpuckcast in October in Vegas. We'll be sharing more details between now and then, but thank you, Jon, for your hospitality, and we can't wait to see you in Vegas.
My pleasure. We look forward to seeing you, and I guess go Mavs.
Go Mavs.
So that should be a great time. And I know over the coming months, we will have additional information and details about that Icebreaker tournament, about whatever events that the Alumni Association is planning for that. So it should be a great time. So stay tuned for details. But before any of us can go on that trip to Las Vegas, before we can talk about any of the conference tournament, NCAA tournament things, we've got to talk about the final series of the regular season. It's our old foe coming to town, our travel partner in the NCHC, North Dakota. You know, this is the last season that North Dakota is going to be our travel partner, with Arizona State joining the conference next season. How teams are scheduled every year is going to be realigned, and there are going to be 3-team clusters, which we are going to be in with Miami and Western Michigan. So it's not guaranteed that we will play North Dakota in 2 series every single season. So North Dakota, as you mentioned earlier, Bridge, clinched the regular season conference championship and secured the Penrose Cup. North Dakota is 24-8-2 overall. And 15-6-1 in conference play. Their last 4 games were in Grand Forks against UMD and Western Michigan, and they went 4-0 against both of those teams. Of course, at the helm is Brad Berry. He is 204, 103 in 9 seasons with the Fighting Hawks. His very first season, they won the national championship, and they have not won a national championship since. So there is that. Players to watch, of course. And I got to tell you, looking up and down North Dakota's roster, they have a lot of really impressive skaters. On that roster. So let me start with the goaltenders here. Senior goaltender Ludwig Pearson has seen most of the time in net. He has a 2.44 goals against average and a .908 save percentage. But it's possible with North Dakota clinching the Penrose Cup already that we could see Hobie Hedquist in net. We'll just have to see. I don't know who will be in net, but Ludwig Pearson is a goaltender who had our number during his years at Miami. A lot of successful games that the RedHawks had against us with him between the pipes. Like I mentioned, so many good skaters on this team, but let me just highlight a couple. Certainly sophomore forward Jackson Blake leads North Dakota with 19 goals and 31 assists. He had 1 goal and 2 assists against Western Michigan this last weekend. And certainly former Mav Cam Berg, number 2 on the team in points, has 19 goals and 15 assists this season.
I love that kid, but I hate to play against him. And like you said, Jackson Blake, he's within 1 point of breaking the NCHC scoring record with some big names from the past, Bobby Brink and Brock Bozer. And so he is definitely a key part of that North Dakota team. But like you said, so many others too. Reese Gaber, Louis Jamernick, all of these guys have the ability to put the puck in the net. It's going to be a battle for sure this weekend. So one big key for the Mavs this weekend is faceoffs. That was one area last weekend where Western did have some success, is winning the faceoff battle. And UNO, that's really a point of emphasis for them as well. Mueller, Sullivan, big on the faceoff dot. So puck possession obviously is a big key. And so those faceoffs are going to be really critical this weekend.
UNO has to be careful. They've got to play good defense this weekend. We're going to need a big weekend out of Simon Lacozian net. Bridge, what's your pick for this weekend? Do you think UNO sweeps? Do you think they get swept? Do you think they split? What do you think as UNO tries to fight to secure that last home ice spot in the NCHC playoffs?
My head and my heart have really been battling over the last 24 hours as I try and figure out how you're gonna pick and what I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna go with a split, but I hope I'm wrong and that Omaha sweeps or gets what Annie Lindgren is calling a Swiffer, which is not a sweep, but a regulation win and a shootout win, for 5 points. Like we talked about, we need all the points we can get. So my head says we're going to get a split. My heart really wants a sweep or a Swiffer.
Like I mentioned, UNO has not swept North Dakota in the history that we have played them since being in the WCHA and the NCHC. Certainly a tall order for UNO. I think UNO has a real opportunity here to do it. And what are we talking about here? UNO is 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. I think I've been picking them to sweep every series in those last 10 games. I might have picked a split up at St. Cloud State, but I basically been saying UNO is going to sweep. It would certainly be a lot easier to do this podcast if UNO just swept every single series. I'm going to say UNO finds a way to get it done. I think they go into Friday night of this series with plenty of motivation against North Dakota. You need the veterans, you need the freshmen, you need those lunch pail guys like Jacob Slipek and Jimmy Glynn to all step up and get the job done. I think the team can do it. Baxter Arena should be rocking, should be a great environment for this weekend's game. So I'm picking a sweep. I'm picking a sweep against North Dakota, Bridge. I know conventional wisdom says a split is the most likely outcome, but I'm going with a sweep. And I'm hoping to watch UNO play at Baxter Arena when postseason play starts for the team. So it should be exciting. If you'd like to join us for those games, both games, of course, will be at Baxter Arena. They will start at 7:05 p.m. Central Time on Friday and Saturday nights. Friday is Leap for a Cure night, which means they will be doing a jersey auction. And
the jersey auction actually runs, it says on the schedule, through the 14th. So unlike previous ones, they've extended it by a few days, probably hoping to raise a little bit more money for the Leap for a Cure organization.
Saturday night's game is a whiteout game. As we mentioned up the top, you might want to pick up some white gear at Lawler's Custom. Other than jerseys, I don't have a lot of white UNO gear, Bridge.
I do, and I might be breaking it out this weekend. It depends on how things go on Friday.
Yes, it does depend. And as a number of you know who follow us on social media, My gray roll wagon jersey that I got in the Leap for a Cure auction last season is unbeaten this season. UNO has not lost when I've worn that jersey. Now, some fans have said, why don't you wear it every game? Maybe I should. I don't know. I want to keep the mojo going on the jersey. So it is a whiteout on Saturday, but I might have to wear that gray jersey on Saturday night, especially if UNO wins on Friday night.
So Saturday being senior night, we've got graduate students who for sure won't be back next year. That includes graduate defenseman Kirby Proctor, graduate defenseman Dom Vidoli, and boy, don't we wish he had some more eligibility left for us. He's a character. Graduate forward Nolan Sullivan, graduate forward transfer Jesse Lansdell, graduate forward Jack Randall, who came to us from Michigan early on, and graduate goaltender Seth Isley. For sure will all be finishing their eligibility. And then we'll be honoring our seniors, although we're still unsure. They have some eligibility left. They might be back. We just don't know. That includes senior defenseman Nolan Krenzen, senior forward Jimmy Glynn, senior forward Brock Bremer, and last but not least, you mentioned him as your player of the weekend, senior forward Matt Miller.
Those guys, due to the COVID season, have another year of eligibility. So it'll be interesting to see if they decide to play a fifth season for UNO, or if they decide to try their hand playing minor league hockey. We just don't know at this point. So it'll be interesting to find out in the next month or so what direction those players are going to take. If you're not coming to the game and you want to listen to the games, you can listen to both games on 1290 Coil. Mike Valancourt and Terry Leahy will have the call. And if you can't tune in 1290 Coil, if you're not in the Omaha area, or you just get really bad radio reception, you can tune those games in on the Varsity Network app. And of course, you can watch both of these games streaming on NCHC TV. It's coming down to the wire, Bridge. It should be an exciting weekend, an exciting next couple of weeks for UNO. I'm excited to see what happens. I'm sure you're excited to see what happens.
I hope that fans come out to Baxter Arena and really get behind this team. Should be a great weekend of hockey, and boy, the boys really need us to get there and be loud.
That's absolutely right. Hopefully we see great crowds, a good student presence to send the Mavs out of the regular season right. Be sure to follow Mavpuck on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. You can find links to all of our social channels at mavpuck.com. And you can also find back episodes of the Mavpuckcast there. If you want to relive the last 5 seasons of UNO hockey, you can certainly do that. But until next time, Bridge, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.